So first of all, let me just say right off the bat that I really like this show. I know we're only 2 episodes in, but let's just say for me, The Mandalorian encapsulates probably everything a Star Wars fan, new or old, could possibly want out of this show. So yes guys, as you're probably reading from the title, this is my episode 1, or should I say chapter 1 and chapter 2 review, kind of back to back, because I watched both episodes, well, back to back. A lot of you have been asking where's my Mandalorian review, like earlier on in the week, but I just kind of wanted to wait until like both episodes were released, because, well, as you should probably already know now, both episodes released in the first week, and then it's going to be every week just per episode up until episode 8. So this is going to be my general thoughts, first impressions, you know, my absolute Star Wars fanboy thoughts on the first 2 episodes of The Mandalorian. So I hope you guys enjoyed this video. I might gloss over a couple of things. Hopefully I don't, because I've got a lot to say. I'd love to hear your thoughts on this show down in the comments below as well, just because I really feel like this is the next best thing for Star Wars. So be sure to like this video, guys, if you do go on to enjoy it, and come on, 1 like means 1 happy day for Baby Yoda, and I can't wait to get onto Baby Yoda. But other than that, yeah, subscribe for more Mandalorian reviews and breakdowns and stuff just like this. So I think what I loved most when following the first 2 episodes is that it's just really refreshing experiencing an outside tale in the Star Wars universe for a change. Not that they haven't like done that in different aspects or elements before in Star Wars, but never truly in this fashion. And what could make it more badass than following that of a Mandalorian's journey 5 years after Return of the Jedi, after the Battle of Jakku, where the galaxy finds itself in a very Wild West lawless place. And honestly, as if I can't keep saying stuff like this, this is the perfect setting for me. And yes, I'm wearing my Boba Fett hat as well, even though, yes, I know it's not about Boba Fett, even though some people thought that they saw Boba Fett in the first episode, which we'll get to that, I suppose. So the first episode, to kind of gloss over the highlights, introduced us to Pedro Pascal's Mandalorian, whose name has actually been recently revealed by the actor himself to be Din Djarin. There's no spelling on that, and he just said it. I don't know if that was meant to be a surprise, but Din, like D-Y-N Djarin. I don't know. Din Djarin is the Mandalorian's name. We have still yet to see the face, but just know that his name is Din. So I was very happy with just the beginning of the episode that delivered from the mood I got from the trailers, with the lone wandering, gunslinging, mysterious presence that ever follows this character. And that feeling is etched into almost any room he walks into, whether that's where he visits the cantina at the beginning to retrieve his bounty, with all of the bystanders looking at him, to several other moments in the episode where people just look at this guy and think, oh shit, I'm not gonna F with him, like, just no. I mean, come on, one of the best lines to come out of that first episode was the one he said to Mithril, where he said, like, I can bring you in warm, or I can bring you in cold. And of course, this being a Star Wars show, there is so much opportunity to introduce Easter eggs or little references to previous movies, just little things that even if you're a new Star Wars fan, you should pick up on some, or even if you're a die-hard old, you know, Star Wars fan. And there's some that I probably missed, but if you found any that I didn't mention, or just want to mention something that you thought was really cool, just let me know down in the comments below. I'd love to see what you found in the episodes. But even that moment when the speeder comes up to the Mandalorian with that R2 unit, I mean, it just seemed like it was like another model or version of Luke's speeder from episode 4, A New Hope. We of course got the Razor Crest, which just held bounties frozen in carbonite that are very reminiscent of Han in The Empire Strikes Back, but of course that is a totally usual way to capture bounties and freeze them in carbonite. So yeah, it's not unusual to have that on the Razor Crest. On the Razor Crest as well, we had that armory section that when Mithril tried to escape, inside was a DL-44 blaster, which if you guys know is kind of Han's weapon of choice, even though his one is a slightly modified version. But hey, DL-44, awesome blaster. I want to own one and put it in that background somewhere. But yeah, I just loved the attention of detail throughout. I mean, we even had a little Salacious Crumb-like creature, which I believe is a Kowakian monkey lizard. But yeah, I mean, Salacious Crumb, I believe, was the name of the one in Jabba's palace in episode 6, Return of the Jedi. But we literally saw this little monkey lizard watching his friend getting roasted while he knew he was next. Also, can we just appreciate the Razor Crest and its beauty? I mean, I just love every shot it's in. I don't know if you guys looked into the behind the scenes stuff of The Mandalorian, but you know, they were using the old kind of techniques. Obviously, we've got CGI in this show, but they use, you know, models and stuff like that to give it much more of a, you know, realistic feel, and that's the kind of the magic of Star Wars anyways. Like all the puppeteering in this episode, or like both episodes, the practical effects, even, you know, obviously the visual effects are amazing, but it has that hybrid blend that Star Wars just does so well, and probably wouldn't be the same. I mean, I know George dropped it a lot in the prequels. So at this moment in the episode, I believe this is when the Mandalorian meets the head of the Bounty Hunter Guild, Grief Karga. I like how they throw in little tidbits, like when he tried to pay him in Imperial credits, but the Mandalorian wouldn't take any of that because it's like, duh, the Empire's gone, so these credits, even though I guess you could still spend them, they're not worth much, or at least not nearly as much as what they were, and they'll be practically useless, in time to come. This is where things really get rolling, and the Mandalorian gets an extremely interesting bounty, and assuming that you're watching this video, you have seen both episodes, then you know exactly who I'm on about, or what, but yeah. And after being told where to get this bounty, the Mandalorian comes across a room full of stormtroopers, and what seems to be like this very high-ranking Imperial, I don't specifically know, like he had a fat of, Imperial insignia, like bling to him, if you know what I mean. And if you're wondering as to why they're still around, I mean, even though the Empire has mainly gone and been defeated, post Return of the Jedi and all of that good stuff, we all know, well, we might not all know, but there was a Battle of Jakku, which was kind of the final stand, and this is still set after that, but that doesn't mean that every kind of Imperial has gone. Sure, some have run for the furthest, outer system in the galaxy, but there are some who are still kind of latching onto power. There are some that are flexing their power and trying to maintain dominance in a certain area. That's why you see this guy with a bunch of stormtroopers, and I really just love that effect of as well. Those stormtroopers, like, they weren't exactly polished. They were really grubbed and dirtied up on their armor. That's because they're having a rough time of it now. Like, the Empire is gone, but there are those still trying to hold on to certain power. So of course this is when he gets the mission to track this bounty. All he knows of this bounty is that he's 50 years old, or it is 50 years old, with little to go on other than that tracking fob as well. And this was all in exchange for some Beskar metal, which is essentially priceless to Mandalorians, as this is what they strive to forge their weapons and armor out of. This is literally impervious to most blaster fire, even lightsabers. So like, this is always this metal, like Beskar steel or Beskar iron, whatever way you kind of want to pluck out of it. It is such an invaluable item to Mandalorians, which we actually saw him go back to his Mandalorian tribe's outpost to do, to forge, something out of it. And that's when he met that, like, female Mandalorian. I don't believe we know her name, but she forged out of the Beskar steel, this, Beskar plated, well, it wasn't even plated, it was like a pure Beskar pauldron. So bit by bit, he's even adding more Beskar onto himself. And that Mandalorian who smithed the pauldron even hinted that this Beskar steel he was paid in advance here was probably acquired in the Great Purge, I believe she said. Now, I don't think that's like the Great Jedi Purge or anything like that, post Order 66. Maybe this just means that there was something to do with the Mandalorian tribe, and the Empire, and they got a lot of their Beskar taken away. I believe this is kind of fairly unknown right now. I mean, correct me if I'm wrong down in the comments below. I think it is quite ambiguous, but I would love to hear some speculation. And what I like about the demonstration of this Beskar armor as well, just in comparison to other normal armor, is when he had his wrist guards like all chewed up with that battle he had with the Blurgs a bit later. Like, it was just completely like torn through, whereas Beskar wouldn't even touch a dent into it. Also, while the pauldron was being forged, this is where we got some flashbacks to the Mandalorian's childhood, which would have been set around the time of the Clone Wars, which I believe we will find out more of. I mean, it's going to be interesting to find out as well if he's actually even of Mandalorian descent, because you could argue the family we saw briefly in those flashbacks, like maybe he was just raised by Mandalorians and in so doing became one, because in this iteration I don't really know if it's so much of a race of people. It's always kind of blurred the lines either way. Like, you can become a Mandalorian not necessarily being in direct Mandalorian heritage, but yeah, like, it would just be interesting to like find out a bit more of that, because that was just dribbled to us in this episode. And as I teased earlier, guys, a lot of people were saying around this point in the episode that Boba Fett himself featured, and as we all know, he got chewed up from the Sarlacc pit, but it doesn't mean that he didn't survive. To be fair to people, that background Mandalorian did more or less have the exact identical armor to Boba Fett. I truly feel like it was more of a nod, just like a little Easter egg. I don't think that was Boba himself. A lot of people are reading into that. I think for now, don't read into it. It's just meant to be fun, but you never know. Like, hold out hope for good old Boba. This is where we get to see Nick Nolte voiced Ugnaught, who helps the Mandalorian on his journey. We get to see him ride the Blurg, while also getting a reference to the great Mythosar, who, his ancestors would have ridden, version, you know, which also inspires the whole Mandalorian symbol, which we saw a fat emblem above at the outpost we saw previously. I feel like the action is just fantastic, and of course I'm talking about that moment when IG-88 was just unloading on all of those mercenaries, which was just a funny moment within itself in the episode when the Mandalorian was just conversing with him and it turned out they were in the same guild. IG-88 is just so deadly, but in this moment it just ended in such a cool way with the Mandalorian just jumping on that cannon and unloading on all of like the mercenaries of that outpost anyway. It was just so good. Like, I need more of this, and you can be damn sure there's more of this to come. And yes, guys, finally, we have to talk about it. What was this bounty that required the best bounty hunter in the entire parsec that was so valuable that they had a whole bunch more Beskar steel stored away for the reward of this? And holy crap, it was literally a 50-year-old baby version of freaking Yoda. Now, if you're wondering, like, wait, what? Like, what's the species, or why do people keep saying Baby Yoda when that's probably not Baby Yoda? Well, to be honest, that's probably the best way to reference this Baby Yoda, just because what we do know about Yoda's species, like, whether you're a new Star Wars fan or not, like, it's probably obviously caters more towards the people who don't know so much, is that we barely know anything about Yoda's species. Like that is more or less the bottom line. Little to nothing is known about his species other than that they can live for an extremely long time. For example, you know, as we know, Yoda was around 900 years old. We also know that they are very force sensitive, which we'll get to that moment in just, you know, several minutes time. So relative to age, this very child toddler-like version of this Yoda species does seem about right. Either way though, guys, his species is so rare to come across, and it was just such an unexpected twist at the end of this episode. And, you know, I think we can all agree that he is insanely cute, and any of us would take some blaster fire to protect the Baby Yoda. But as I said, everyone, I watched both of these episodes back to back, so I didn't see episode 2 until yesterday when it came out Friday, but also episode 1 as well. So this was all new to me. I managed to avoid the Baby Yoda spoilers, and I was just delighted to find out that the entire next episode was entitled The Child, and, you know, was practically dedicated to protecting the Baby Yoda. And also I just like how this appealed to the Mandalorian's personality. I mean, this is a guy who doesn't really give a crap who he brings in cold or warm, if you know what I mean. But when it comes to this baby, then that's another story, and I'm definitely just intrigued to see what he decides when it comes to this innocent life, and whether he really wants to trade this baby in for the, you know, more Beskar steel than he could possibly fathomably imagine. And we all know what the Empire would want to do with this freaking Baby Yoda, which is why, you know, we had differing opinions from the Doctor and the Imperial, like, leader guy saying, you know, I'll accept him in dead, but at a loss of the fee, and the Doctor guy, you know, really wants him back alive. And also, speaking of that Doctor, I'm sure you've heard many theories, and this is something I definitely wanted to bring up whilst I could in my kind of rambly discussion of both episodes, because I feel like I have to acknowledge it, because certainly interesting stuff does happen with this baby. Lots of people are saying that due to the symbol on Dr. Pershing's sleeve, which some of you may or may not have got, resembles that of the cloners on Kamino, you know, the people, like the Kamino, I can't say the word off the top of my head, but you know what I mean. And who were those people? They made the whole clone army. So yeah, you can see how people are now thinking, what if this is a clone of Yoda? Now, at first, like, mention of that phrase, like, literally, it feels like a far reach. What, a clone of Yoda? But then you kind of see what happens and unfolds in episode 2, and I was just thinking, like, well, maybe there is some merit to this. I don't know. I remember, like, the cloak of Yoda got left behind, and various other things, and you could argue they could have kind of cloned him. But I still think it's a far cry from what is really happening here. It's probably just another member of his species. But at the same time, you know, it is very interesting to consider, especially with, you know, the Kamino cloning symbol there on that Doctor who really is desperate to get this, you know, Baby Yoda back alive and well and not dead. So during episode 2, it was just such another great taste of the Star Wars universe done just right. And have I mentioned how much I love a show, you know, following the journey of a Mandalorian is just amazing? No? I haven't said that? Okay. One thing I will say though, and this isn't really me complaining by the way, but I've seen lots of people mention this, is that I didn't necessarily expect these episodes to be as short as they are. I mean, they're not extremely short, but this episode was around 32 minutes, which makes it shorter than the first episode, I believe. Now, this isn't a big deal, especially with how much budget goes into this anyway, but it's just, you know, now we have just 8 episodes overall in the first season, and that's 2 down so far, so I hope we don't have to wait, you know, week to week with episodes of the same length. I hope we just get like 6 more minutes next episode. Now, this video at this point is getting on quite a bit. I've been talking for ages, but you know, the thing about episode 2 as well is that it felt like one large scene almost. I mean, it was very centered around the child per the episode title, so it doesn't feel like I have as much to get through. I loved seeing the Mandalorian escorting the child in his little floating baby crib kind of thing, getting into more fights with amazing action with other people who were still after the child, and it was just adorable when Baby Yoda was reaching out to the Mandalorian while he was like cauterizing his wound. Now, at this point, you know, let's talk about this for a second. I thought this was just supposed to be a nod to the baby using the Force, because obviously, like, this baby is Yoda's race, and obviously it would just maybe be funny to have that little scene with him reaching out and it just seeming as though he's using the Force. I didn't pick up on this. I was as clueless as the Mandalorian. I thought they were just deliberately doing that for a bit of a laugh. I didn't expect a 50-year-old baby to actually be trying to heal him. I did go there for a second, but I wrote it off. I was like, of course, come on, like that's not gonna happen. All of this was just really funny. Amongst the funny scenes we were already given with the kid and the frogs, but then there was that scene later which is whoa. But we'll get to that, I promise. Just 2 more minutes. But the Jawlas have returned, everyone, and it felt even great seeing the sandcrawlers again. And if you can tell, I already have like a freaking Lego sandcrawler. I'm a huge sandcrawler fan, clearly. No, but you know what I mean. I feel like the sandcrawler is just giving me really classic vibes. You know, obviously to like episode 4. Turns out they had completely salvaged most of the Razor Crest, which left the Mandalorian stranded during this episode. But what I think the Mandalorian is doing so well, reflecting back on both of these episodes, especially the second was being a bit more prominent with it, is that it mixes in this Star Wars humor, which I feel doesn't come across like cringy in any way, but also maintaining the edgier Star Wars aspects that the Mandalorian practically promised that it would deliver. I mean, I always appreciate something when it doesn't compromise its tone, when it introduces like comedic aspects like this, and we saw plenty of that, especially like when he tried to flamethrow a Jawa's face. So where are we up to now? Of course, to get back the parts of his ship, he had to get this giant ass huge egg, sacred to the Jawas, even though they just wanted to eat it. But either way, this is when he faces off against this, I believe it's a new creature. I don't recognize the species. I mean, just like that monster, that ice monster in the first episode, I believe that was another kind of original creation, which was awesome, by the way. Like, yeah, there's kind of a lot of things I'm missing out on whilst trying to talk about everything at the same time. But this is the moment, guys. This is the moment. I loved this fight anyway. Like, that, if it wasn't for Baby Yoda, like, he would have been obliterated. You practically saw his like plate torso armor like half ripped off anyway. But anyway, I kind of want to concentrate on Baby Yoda for a second. I mentioned earlier how I just felt like with that reaching moment, like they were just teasing him using the Force, but they actually went there. I mean, honestly, this was a very big WTF moment for me. I didn't expect a kid like of Yoda's species, like the cute thing we've been seeing this whole time, to genuinely float up this creature for the Mandalorian to deliver that final kill shot. It was a great moment. Obviously the Baby Yoda like passed out from like exhaustion of the Force, which, you know, is a thing, and he's literally like a kid of his species, so it's really just like crazy to think how he had the ability to do that. But I thought it was really sweet as well, and didn't get past me in terms of, oh, but would a kid really do that? Would he really use, you know, there are some fans who'll be like, would he really be able to use the Force like that? I think he would. I think that's fine. You know, like, obviously this baby is like imprinted almost on the Mandalorian and believes that he's been protecting him this whole time, so out of the instinct, it used the Force. And as we mentioned earlier with Yoda's species, they're very Force sensitive, and, you know, say what you will about the Yoda clone theories here, you could put that into it, but this was like a really, really cool moment. And yeah, poor baby, because for the rest of the episode, it was completely wiped out, and it looked fairly sick. So yeah, it really did overextend its Force ability, I think. What I really liked about this as well is that the Mandalorian didn't understand the living feeling crap about what just happened. Like, how did the baby really do that? And that's because this sets up the time that we are actually in Star Wars. The Jedi have been gone for a very, very long time since Order 66. I mean, sure, you could say Luke was out there, Darth Vader and the Emperor, like, even though they're not Jedis, but they're Force users. But think about, like, the grand days of the Republic, you know, before, you know, the rise of the Galactic Empire. There was a whole Jedi temple on Coruscant. Like, so many people knew about the Jedi, but, you know, span 20 plus or something years, it's more or less turned into what Han Solo said, like hokey religions and ancient weapons. It's not really a believed thing. It's probably just told about in stories, and even then, if you spoke about it, especially on other worlds than Coruscant, people would just be like, I don't see that. I don't really believe it. I've never seen it. But I'm going to end this video there, guys, because that was mainly the gist of the second episode. Of course, you know, just last comments on that. I loved it when they did the montage of repairing the ship. Goodbye, Ognor. I really loved that guy as well. Like, I really wanted him to join his crew. That would have been really cool. But I also get how this is going to be kind of like a lone kind of western-y vibe from the Mandalorian himself, even though we will see other companions-esque, you know, characters coming in the following episodes. But honestly, guys, I don't have anything to complain about with this other than episode length. If you know, I was to get nitpicky, I mean, of course, if you're liking a show like this, you would want to see more. So really big fan of this. They've managed to capture Star Wars in the best way. I think this is, as what I've seen being said everywhere else, is that this is Star Wars at its best. And guess what? Star Wars doesn't have to have laser swords or lightsabers in it to be cool. You can literally rely on people like this, you know, symbols on my hat, even though it's not Boba, but you know, the Mandalorians. If you're new to this is amazing because you're just finding out about how badass, you know, what they could go with into here with Mandalorians and how they can explore that. But even if you're a long-term Star Wars fan, this is an exciting time because, you know, we've known about Mandalorians, whether that's through canon or Legends, and how many cool stories are for there. And we can also just watch these episodes and watch what they bring to live action and even canonize in episodes to come, which is an exciting aspect as well. So, man, I'm losing my words just because I'm so happy with this. I would love to know all of your thoughts down in the comments below, guys. Let me know your theories on Baby Yoda. Let me know your theories on just things in general. Other than that, though, everyone, let me know if you enjoyed this video by leaving a like on it. It really does help out the channel a great deal, especially this video. Let me know if you want to carry on seeing Mandalorian reviews or breakdowns, kind of like this, but don't worry, it won't be as long as this because it will just be one episode a week kind of thing. Let me know if you want to see more down in the comments. Check out my past couple of videos here. You can follow me on social media and all of those links down in the description below. Talk about the Mandalorian with me in my Discord server. That server link will be in the top pinned comment. But that is everything. So thank you so much for watching, guys. Hope you have a lovely rest of your day, and I'll see you Mandalorians in the next video. Goodbye.